Okay, tonight we have a very awesome presentation. We're going to have a quadruple header, starting off with Bill Morgan, who will be talking about early man, knuckle dragger, or genius. And then he's going to tag team with Bailey, and Bailey's going to be talking on pyramids and the intelligence of early man. And then Rachel's going to, Bill's going to come back out and hit us a little more with some cool knowledge. And then Rachel, his daughter's going to come out and talk on bird migration. Now let me give a little introduction. Now, for those of you who don't know Bill Morgan, he's been around creation science since the dawn of man, roughly. He's literally been around a long, long time. What, 20 plus years now? And he is presently the president of the Creation Science Association of West Grove, which is Calvary Chapel in Garden Grove. Did I get that right? And his daughter Rachel will be the other speaker. And she goes to Cypress Branch Christian School, and that is the parent organization for the homeschooling that she gets through her mother. And Bailey is going to Bell Intermediate School, and her parents really helped to influence her towards thinking scientifically at a very young age. And then once she got to see Bill Morgan, Bill saw the potential and asked her to speak. So I think this is about the third time that she's going to give a presentation. So let's welcome Bill Morgan and the girls.
Thank you. This is my home away from home for creation. And both John and Garth asked me independently, well, who's the boy who's going to speak? And so I guess it's me. We're going to have two young ladies that I'm really happy to have speaking, and myself. And if any of you know a young person who has a creation message, get them out there. It's important for them to learn to public speak and get the word out. And I'm really excited what we're going to do tonight. My history in a nutshell is this. I was raised in Buffalo, New York, had season tickets to the Bills from 66 to 83. So I know about suffering. I'm ready for heaven. Amen? No. But I was raised going to church, went to church every Sunday, learned a lot of Christian teaching, biblical teaching, a lot of songs, Christian camps. And at the age of 14, two things happened to me. I'll treat everyone like adults. Number one was active hormones. I was tempted by a lot of things that the Bible says not to do. And I was saying, should I believe that book or should I do what looks to be fun? I know a secret about everybody in here, and I won't embarrass you by eye contact, but the secret is every single one of you is tempted by sin and you don't brag about it. Any amens to that? Right. This is what happens at church. Hey, George, how you doing? Oh, I'm doing great. Then George sits down and says, I'm not doing great. Everybody at church is doing great except for me. Something's wrong with me because I have all these temptations in my head. Now, if George were honest, he'd say, hey, George, how you doing? Oh, I'm really tempted by Sue. Oh, I'm really tempted by... See where I'm getting at? The thing is, it's important to realize every single one of us will be tempted our entire life. We have an advocate in Jesus who was tempted for 40 days after his baptism. You will be tempted as well, amen? But do you ever sometimes go to church and say, what am I doing here? I'm the biggest loser in this church. Anyone admit to that? But, anyways, there is grace. We have to remember that. But at the age of 14, I wasn't sure if I should really believe in that book. I had one biology teacher give one lesson on one day about the fact of the theory of evolution. He showed me the ape men. I was in the third row of the class on this side. And I said to myself, wait a minute, the Bible teaches instant people. My biology teacher is telling us that man is related to an ape-like man. I said, if the Bible is wrong about science and creation, that means the Bible is wrong about what? The rules about sin. And as a tempted ninth grader, guess what I said? I said to myself, hallelujah. Can anybody relate to this experience in your life? None of you? A couple of you. In ninth grade, I felt liberated. I don't have to listen to these rules. The book is wrong. Yes, people spent hundreds of hours teaching me what is in the book, but they never taught me what? why to believe the book, you see? And 1 hour of that teaching wiped that out. Make a long story short, at the age of 26, I got a little creation literature similar to the comic book that you got that taught what the actual fossils were of those ape-like cartoons. The cartoons are fantastic. The fossils are awful. I looked into it more and more, and I felt lied to, angry, and ripped off at what I had been indoctrinated with. So this dinosaur thing might be the only chance that some people get to hear the truth about dinosaurs. So I'm not doing this, but I've done a lot of street witnessing. If you decide to go, you're immediately going to start making excuses not to go. Any street witness relate to that? You know, I got to wash the cat, and you know, I mean, I can relate, but fix your eyes on Jerusalem, do it, and you'll be blessed afterwards, because you will try to talk yourself out of it. Okay. Exactly right. Yep. Say, well, I'm not really ready yet. Like, you ever play a sport? What's your favorite sport that you played? Great. Did you wait until you were absolutely perfect before you went out and played? No. You got out there into the game. You stunk the first time. You learned from it. You got better and better and better. It's the same with witnessing. You're never going to be perfect, but you should be in the game. We write a newsletter for our little group at Garden Grove, and thank you, Garth, for making me president. I didn't know I was. No. We just have meetings. We don't have any titles or anything. But if you want to get our newsletter by email, I send out once a month, and you can give me an email address. I have a pen, and a miracle will be that I ever see that pen again. Amen? Okay. Let's get to the lesson. I had always been taught, because from the age of 3 until I graduated from college, that early men were knuckle-dragging brutes at one time, okay? Stumbling, bumbling through life, trying to make it, and then some magic happened, and here we are today, right? So, I'm going to talk about early men, if they were geniuses or knuckle-draggers. And this is stuff that I use sometimes when I witness to people, this argument here. I'd like you to talk to someone next to you and discuss these questions. What is knowledge? And what is wisdom? And an example of the difference between the two. So just take a couple minutes, make a new friend perhaps, and talk about the difference between knowledge and wisdom. Okay. Stop fellowshipping, everybody. I'll just tell you a quick joke. I love Greg Laurie. I love Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa. Once he gave a whole lesson on fellowship, how important it was for people to talk. Anybody go on Monday nights in the past or present? So after Monday night service, people are talking. After about 10 minutes, bam, they turn the lights off. Okay. Stop fellowshipping, basically. Everybody was talking and fellowshipping. Okay. Tough crowd out there tonight. Okay. Any examples, the difference between knowledge and wisdom for 10 points? Anybody want to get 10 points? Anybody want to share what you came up with? Yes.
Knowledge to me is facts, figures, numbers, dates, places, which may or may not be correct depending upon the source. Wisdom, I like to think, comes from maybe your own experience and helps you deal with life.
Okay, good. Anyone else? Yes?
Knowledge comes from books, and wisdom comes from God.
Okay, very good. Good. Anyone else? All right. Here's an example. Who's that? Yep. Suppose John Wayne were to say, smoking can be really, really bad for you. He could give you data and stats and statistics and all that. Then you see him in a cigarette ad, right? Knowledge is the possession of information, data, etc. Wisdom is applying it, okay? How many people know people who are absolute geniuses? They know the cause of the Crimean War, they know 7 languages and can understand 24, but their life is a total mess. Anyone? Yeah, the smartest person I ever met in knowledge had such little wisdom, it was really, really sad. So the key is applying it, and that's a human trait. And what is a good source to apply knowledge? This young man talked about it. A good way to apply knowledge is through God, and I'm going to give an example in a little bit. Now, what is intelligence? Who is more intelligent? Einstein or New Guinea, Clifford Leonard, New Guinea tribesmen?
Einstein is more intelligent.
Okay? I would say you can't say that. I would say they're both highly intelligent. Anyone amen to that? Einstein's fantastic in his civilized world of physics. How long do you think he'd last in that world? You never know. I am maybe a humble person. I'd say that these people are geniuses as well. One blessing that I have is my dad had a construction company, and I worked there for 7 summers and got a degree as an engineer. And I honestly think, person for person, the person working out there in the field is more intelligent than a lot of the engineers that I've met. Anybody amen to that? So these people are geniuses. He had a mechanic work for him named Roger Downey. He was so good, sometimes like from Buffalo, they'd send him to Ohio to do taps on big pipes. He could repair anything. I saw his toolbox. Wrenches. R-E-N-C-H-S. Now, someone with just education, oh, this guy can't even spell. But to me, he was an absolute genius. So I think there is genius everywhere. I think of trait of humans is that they have always shown genius throughout time, okay? So once again, I would say those people are incredibly good at what they do. And I just learned that Clifford Lillo was there during World War II in New Guinea, which is a story I'd love to hear. Okay? Definition of intelligence is the ability to comprehend and profit from experience. Once again, both of these gentlemen did that quite well. Okay? How many people remember this movie, The Edge? Remember the plot?
Yeah, I think so. They were trying to survive in the wilderness.
Yeah, to us, this is a terror movie. These 2 city-type people landed in the middle of a forest, and they had to survive. They had to get food. They had to find shelter, etc. This was a way of life a couple hundred years ago. Follow me? Today, it's like, oh, I'm hungry. We drive to In-N-Out Burger. Back then, you had to kill the food, prepare it, preserve it, etc., and make enough to survive a winter. Just think how smart people were a few hundred years ago if you wanted to build a farm in Kentucky. You had to learn how to clear a field, plant a field, plow a field, give birth, raise the children, many, many things, build a house. These people were geniuses. My humble opinion is each generation gets dumber. Now, individually, we might become more specialized, but I look at my dad and my grandfather, I mean, they can do so many incredible things with repairs and building and things like that, that I do think each generation is losing knowledge because of perhaps of an easier lifestyle. Yes?
One of the things in Boy Scouts is wilderness survival.
Mm-hmm. Right. And for the average person today, that's just beyond comprehension, isn't it? Yes?
I have a relative who's so brilliant in so many fields, electronics, in which I am a complete dummy, but I don't think he knows how to use a screwdriver or a pair of pliers.
Mm-hmm.
And I can do all sorts of things all day long. We come from different generations.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right. And we're going to talk about what one of the differences is between today and a couple hundred years ago. And I love interaction. Raise your hand if you guys want to say or ask or comment. Okay? All right. Applied wisdom, I think, can come from God. Many years ago, I got to speak at Riverside Community College on a creation topic. And one of the students said, Mr. Morgan, look out. We have a teacher there who hates creation. He hates creationists. So I said, oh, good. I love hecklers. But I prayed, and I said, Lord, give me wisdom of how to give this lesson. And I came up, or God gave me the idea to do this. When I introduced myself, I said, I'm going to give a 40-minute lesson, and all questions I'll take at the end. Okay? Then it doesn't turn into a sidetracked debate. So I'm 5 minutes into my lesson. In the back row, this guy's waving his hand, like, I got to save science from this guy. Science is going to die. And I said, sir, I'll get to the question at the end. 10 minutes later, oh, he's waving his hand. Oh, science is going to die. I'll get to your question at the end. So I finished. I said, any questions? And his hand goes right up. I said, yes, sir. Have you ever done any scientific research? And I instantly prayed on the spot. I said, "Oh, dear Lord, please give me an answer." 15, 20 years later, I can't come up with a better answer that I feel the Lord gave me. I said, every single day, I said, "Sir, in my opinion, a car mechanic is a scientist. They have to know electrical systems, combustion, mechanics, etc. To me, sir, a cook is a mechanic. Thermodynamics, heat transfer, chemistry. What's holding this church up? Excellent science." That wasn't at a church, it was a school there. I mean, good strength of materials, statics and dynamics. Carpenters apply these all the time. In my opinion, everyone in this room is a scientist. I said, I have never worn a lab coat and been funded by the government to solve a problem, but I do work as an engineer, so I feel I am a scientist. Make a long story short, we talked for 2 hours afterward. He gave me my first laser pen. We became buddies. And then I just said, "So, if the universe didn't get here by God, how did it get here?" He said, "I don't have any idea." We talked more, and it came down to the root of the people who really hate creation, and that's suffering. Okay, the really hardcore, loud atheists have suffered a lot, and they're dealing with that by fighting creation. Most people are apathetic. Most people, they've been taught it, they said, "Okay, that's nice, I'm going to work on my career," and things like that. But bitterness is the root of the hardcore atheist. Anybody relate to that? My goal is to reach them, but to reach the open-minded person, and then there's a lot of them out there as well. And that's why I hope you do the dinosaur thing and plant some seeds with people. Okay? Okay, humans exist today, right? So there had to be a first human. Pretty simple stuff. There's two possibilities. And think of the details on this. The first human had ape-like parents and were knuckle draggers. They were like one mutation short of being human, right? And all of a sudden, bink, they're human. That's one possibility. And they might have looked like that guy, okay? Wish I had arms like that guy, right? I found this on the internet. I just love the artwork. Early people, flints, weapons, etc. The schools teach this. Most people don't take it to heart too much. Like I said, everyone out there that believes in the theory of evolution, they don't have horns and they hate God. It's all they've been taught and they accept it and they move on. We got to reach these people. She got a 10 on her paper. I wonder what I would have got if I talked about early people. And so a good question is, did cavemen exist? Let's take a vote. How many people believe cavemen existed? Good. How many would say no, they never did? Okay, well, cavemen do exist today. They're called bachelors. Amen? That was me. 12 years I lived on my own. I never changed one vacuum cleaning bag. I couldn't even see my carpet, much less the need to vacuum. And then I got married, and it's like, what? Every 2 weeks you got to change one of these things? It was a wonderful lifestyle. What is a caveman? A person who lives in a cave. Today, millions of people still live in caves. In the past, people lived in a cave. It's not a bad place to live. You're out of the weather. It's air conditioned. If it's in a wild area, you only have to defend your front. It's not a bad place to be. And once again, millions of people live in them today. I don't believe they were ever any less human than you and I. Okay? If you don't have a quick shelter, it's not a bad place to live. All right? Now, some facts on Neanderthal man. Their DNA has been found 100% human, okay? They had wisdom teeth, bones identical to today's. 5'6" and about 140 pounds. They were often stockier than we were today, perhaps like a linebacker might be. And just look at the diversity of people. You've got tiny little Chinese gymnasts, and you've got nose tackles in the NFL. You follow me? There's a tremendous amount of variety, and the fossils of humans all fall within that. And Neanderthal had tools, musical instruments, and buried their dead with flowers. Quick little fact. Today, if you go to In-N-Out Burger, your meat could be from Sacramento, your lettuce could be from, say, Arizona, and your bread could be from Texas. Follow me? Back then when you lived, you only ate food in your local area. It would be very easy to have a vitamin deficiency because you're only eating that area. That could account for the variation of fossils of humans. Okay? Okay, so maybe people were knuckle draggers and instantly became human, or they were instantly created as male and female and very intelligent. So it's got to be one or the other. Ever notice how confused they make the ape-man people look? Like, what's going on? The expressions are just fascinating, and there's so many of them. They have scratches, and they're dirty and things like that. Like, man, I got to get some evolution and mutations going on. But, okay, when did the first humans appear? Well, this could be a clue. I still remember, my wife was asleep. I was about to go to bed as I was looking through the mail. I was all set to throw this out. It was in my hand, and I said, wait a minute, and woke her up. Why did I not throw this out? See any clues there? Time magazine, not a creationist publication, a journey through what? 5,000 years of the human adventure. I said, ooh, I can use this. Time magazine is admitting that humans only lived for how long? And why is that? Well, history only goes back 5,000 years. Right. Well, that's the definition of history. A civilization, written languages only goes back 5,000 years. And this comes up when I witness sometimes about evolution versus creation. You meet a Vietnamese person, they'll say, oh, we have the oldest civilization, around 5,000 years. You meet an Egyptian, we have the oldest civilization, 5,000 years. Mesopotamian, Chinese, they all argue about 5,000 years. Well, a year after that, I got something else in the mail. I just changed slides. It's the same thing, right? Look at that. In 1 year, we increased 10,000 years. Everything else is identical. I'll go back and forward. What happened? How did we gain 10,000 years in only a year? I think they got complaints. What do you think? Don't be putting that 5,000 year stuff on there. That's too much in compliance with a lot of these Bible thumpers and what they believe. The next year, they changed everything except adding 10,000 years. Because the 5,000 years falls right into a biblical timeline. And you know, when someone else speaks, I have a paper I want you all to get on that. Falls right into Noah's flood. And we're going to talk about that later too. And that's a paper I want to get to you guys about how long ago Adam and Eve lived. There's a very good genealogy that I want to get in your hands later tonight on how long they lived from the Bible. Yes?
Our latest newsletter has the genealogy that I based it on yours. I just tried to improve it even further and made it as good.
Good. Good. And to inspire you, my paper, do you think it came from a PhD in biblical studies? No, it came from a very good friend of mine, Brand Adams. He hangs signs for a living, loves the Lord. He had a commentary.
He made that sign right there.
Good, yeah. But the thing is you don't need a PhD to do good work. You just need God's help and the Bible. And it's the best chart that I've seen. Little trivia for you. The first 11 chapters of Genesis covers the first 2,000 years of man. And Genesis to the time of Christ is the next 2,000 years. And Christ, as you know, passed away about 2,000 years ago and rose again. So the first 11 chapters are as long as the rest of the Old Testament. Okay, our Bible teaches that man was formed from the dust of the ground. I know a lot of you know that. Instant people. And that's what I believe is supported by the evidence. I do this a lot, and I'm always respectful. I called up the Smithsonian Institute of Human Origins. They have some human origins thing. And I said, I have a question. I never told her I was a creationist. Even when I hung up, she didn't know, but I asked her a few questions. A very, very nice lady. I said, there had to be a first human, correct? And she said, yes. I said, what was the difference between the first human and their parents? Do you think there was like a mini mutation or a big mutation? And we really don't know about that. That's an area that we're doing a lot more research. And I said, okay, so there had to be the first human, and it had to be a male or a female, right? Yes. Well, did it reproduce with another human? And we just had a nice conversation. You see, the details, when you look into the theory of evolution, they just fall apart. And she continually, politely said, we really don't know, we're researching it, we're looking into it. It just doesn't make any sense. Now, a lot of creationists think, well, a lot of Christians think that God used evolution, right? Well, are the 8 men judged? When did man get the soul that the Bible talks about God breathed into man? You follow me? Did he make 8 men, 8 men, 8 men all of a sudden, breathe it in when they had 46 chromosomes and 3.2 billion base pairs? Just doesn't make any sense as I see it. Okay? All humans have what type of ancestor? Human. Is that biblical, scientific, or both? It's both. It's not religion. Here's a lot of things. Oh, creation is religion. How many people have heard that? It's not about religion. It's about the letter T. True. Look for what is true. Don't look for stuff that is religious. Look for stuff that is true. The belief that all humans are related is biblical and scientific. Now, I heard a professor once at Saddleback Community College years and years ago talk about some humans evolved in Asia, some happen to evolve in Africa, and other parts of the world. Well, think of the details. They meet in a singles bar. They say, hey, how many chromosomes you have? 46. Me too. How many base pairs of DNA do you have? 3.2 billion. Me too. Has it got a human identity? What a coincidence, right? Statistically impossible. And even today, evolutionists no longer believe that. Mitochondrial DNA, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because I don't know that much about it. No, because of time, of course, right? All humans are related. Have you heard of mitochondrial Eve? Mitochondrial Eve is the belief, scientific belief, that all humans do share a common ancestor, and it is a human. Okay, and they trace her back to Africa. Not sure how they can do that, but I do believe that all humans are related. Okay? So, the Bible teaches some things about people. They weren't knuckle-dragging brutes. They were made in God's image, instantly. Conversations with God. Man could instantly speak and have conversation. They gave the responsibility to rule over animals and cultivate the garden. I do believe God instantly made man intelligent. Okay? Trivia, how long did Adam live?
930.
Very good, 930 years. 10 points. And Methuselah, 969 years. If people lived that long, didn't drink, didn't do drugs, and had very few mutations in their genes, what could happen? They could gather an incredible amount of intelligence. You follow me? And that's what I believe they did do. Okay? So, then the Bible teaches that nearly everybody, except how many people? 8, got wiped out by a global flood. Now, before the flood, they talk about people and their accomplishments. This is a tough trivia question. Genesis 4:22, people were making what? Starts with letter B. Beads? Maybe, but that's not it. Beer? No.
Bronze.
Bronze, who said that? Very good. Bronze, a metal alloy. Takes a lot of talent to make metal alloys, a lot of research. They figured out what worked, a lot of heat transfer, etc. And they made iron. It's Genesis 4:22. Little metallurgy question. Bronze and brass are alloys of what? Copper. Teach another humbling story. I was taking a class in college spelled Metallurgy. Okay? I'm studying that class. I enjoyed the class. I'm studying it. Halftime of a Bills game, I opened it up and I'm studying a little bit. The guy next to me says, well, what are you studying? I said, metallurgy. He said, it's metallurgy. I mean, I'm studying it in college, but I didn't even know how to pronounce it. But anyways, never forget that. Have you guys ever done that? You've read a word 1,000,000 times, but then you find out you've been mispronouncing it. Well, that was me too. Okay, a little trivia there. Actually, it was my favorite class because I love the teacher. Isn't that true? People say, oh, history is boring. History is awesome. It's got to be taught well, in my opinion. Jubal, Bible trivia, was the father of what? Very good, Christian, good. The father of music, the harp and the flute. And once again, more verses on that. Genesis 4:21. How many people here have ever been called a Nimrod? How many people have called others Nimrods? Now, don't be shy. How many people know who Nimrod was in the Bible? How many people think he was important? He was, okay. And that's supposedly a picture of him. Looks like a tough guy, an ultimate fighter, huh? What was he in charge of? Yes?
Construction of the Tower of Babel.
Very good, very good. The construction of the Tower of Babel. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Do you think smart people built that, or a bunch of knuckle-dragging ape men? Well, they don't know that's what it looked like. To me, this is maybe the funnest part of the lesson. Why did they build it, and what was their sin? I think most Christians, in my opinion, have this wrong. What was their sin, and why did they build it?
They wanted to stay together.
Very, very good, John. Right. Good. Wanted to stay together. A lot of people think they were trying to build an edifice that could reach into heaven. Genesis 11:4, they said, "Come, let us build for ourselves a city and a tower whose top will reach into heaven, and let us make for ourselves a name." Pride, the number one enemy of God, is what? Pride. Otherwise, we'll be scattered abroad over the face of the earth. If you have a growing population, you can either spread out or go up, correct? Like in San Diego and Los Angeles. Genesis 9:1, what was God commanding Noah? Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. And that came before the time of the Tower of Babel. So they were commanded to fill the earth and disperse. What does reach into heaven mean? It starts with letter A. I believe astrology. Okay? We'll talk about that. Now, there's a good physics and construction reason the Tower of Babel was not that tall. Anybody know? Who said that? Ed? Very, very good. It was made of bricks. You can't make extremely tall edifices out of bricks. It can't hold the weight. Tower of Babel was made out of bricks. It wasn't 5,000 feet tall or 500 feet tall. It would have been crushed upon its own weight. Very good. Now, earlier I said each generation gets dumber and dumber, and I'm part of that. But as a society, we're going through the roof. Because of what? It's right up there. Communication. Suppose 100 years ago, I told you, build a car. You sit down and you say, okay, first I got to figure out a transmission. What type of metal am I going to use? I got to figure out combustion. You follow me? Today, you can call Germany. You can call Japan, Korea, and get all this information instantly. Hey, how would you build a transmission? You follow me? But back then, you had to come up with it individually. But today, through the computer and phones and the internet, fax machines, we can combine our information, and exponentially, the accomplishments are going through the roof. But to me, the individual is much more specialized and less eclectic. Any comments on that? Like a lot of you and me, you might be really good at one thing, but clueless in things that other generations used to know about. I just think that's a fact. So, I think Babel had a lot of smart people. They all had the same what? Language, all at the same place. Really were increasing in knowledge in a rapid way. Very important. Babel had a big influence on what? Astronomy and astrology. They were just fascinated by both of those. Astronomy is a great science. Astrology is where you try to interpret it. You know, I always had a problem with these Pisces and Sagittarius. Do you think every Pisces on the earth today had the same day? Right? Some people died, some people got married, etc. To me, it just never made any sense. And, you know, they're looking at stars and making predictions. But I don't want to get Nancy Reagan mad at me. Anybody familiar with Avalon Hill games, board games? You are? Good. I used to play these a lot. And just as an example, one of my favorite ones was called Third Reich. All these different people could have different countries. And it was fun to beat Germany, but you were limited. If you were the Germans, you had like 100 manufacturing units, okay? And with those 100, you had to decide, am I going to build a lot of tanks, a lot of airplanes, a lot of artillery? But you couldn't build everything you wanted in massive quantities. The United States were able to do that, right? But some countries you had to decide where you were going to put your efforts and your intelligence and your work. Same with the people back then. They always say, like, you vote with your feet. Like, oh, California stinks. How many people hear people say that? Well, why don't you move? Well, I like the weather. But if the ancient people put all of their efforts into astronomy and astrology, it had to be very, very important to them, right? So we're going to be talking about that a little bit later. After Babel, the people what? Scattered. Yeah, they didn't listen to God, so God did it for them by confusing them with their languages. And this leads into Bailey's talk. So Tower of Babel hit, brilliant people scatter the earth, and we're going to see what happens next. So, ladies and gentlemen, Bailey.
Okay, so, there we go. Title sequence. Pyramids and the Intelligence of Early Man. Click. Mizraim was the son of Ham, and and also the grandson of Noah, and he pretty much founded Egypt. And after the dispersion of the Tower of Babel, which, by the way, is considered to be a type of step pyramid called ziggurats, Mizraim took his family down to Egypt. And he nor any of the kings in the first or second dynasties actually built any pyramids, but laid the dead in very inferior mud-bricked structures called mastabas. Click. Mastabas. Big difference. Yeah. Oh, you did. All right. And then a bit of background information on the Tower of Babel, which, as you know, was a Mesopotamian ziggurat. And Mesopotamia, by the way, just for you to know, means land between the rivers, which would be the Euphrates and the Tigris. Yeah, I think. Yes. Okay. Ziggurats are the largest buildings in Mesopotamian city-states. And they were built in layers, could be up to 7 stories high. And the layers grew as the city-states' wealth and power grew. And about the city-states, they pretty much were like individual cities with individual laws, except for that they would pretty much follow the codes and laws of Hammurabi, which was developed in Old Babylon, but that's a totally different topic, so I'm going to stay on topic. Okay, they had a shrine to worship the god on the top of the city-state, which kind of leads back to like the astrology and stuff. And they're the busy center of a city-state, which pretty much meant all the trade, all the farming, all the buildings, all the business centers would all go around the ziggurat, which is pretty much a religious center. And they were made of mud brick, and they were considered to be a form of step pyramid, although unlike Egyptian pyramids, which are made out of limestone, like I said, they're made out of mud brick. Click. Alright, now time to look at the Egyptian step pyramid. The first king of the third dynasty, King Zoser, or he has 2 other names. I'm going to stick with Zoser because it's not very complicated. King Zoser had his architect build his mastaba out of limestone. Later, he had 6 steps added onto the mastaba, forming the first Egyptian step pyramid. Like I said, mastabas, not so impressive. Step pyramid, more impressive. King Zoser began an age of pyramids, from the bent pyramid to the red pyramid to the infamous Great Pyramid of Giza. Click. Okay, the one that kind of looks lopsided is the bent pyramid, as you probably already guessed. The one that doesn't really show the individual bricks, but is straight right next to the bent pyramid, is the red pyramid, and the one below them is the Great Pyramid of Giza. Click. Alright. What pyramids were built in the first and second dynasties? Anyone? Click. None. Yeah, I heard it in the first row somewhere. They built mastabas to bury the dead in, like someone said, except mastabas aren't really considered pyramids of any sort. Like I said, they are inferior and Lame. Alright, click. That's the next slide is pretty much a picture of the Great Pyramid of Giza. Pretty big. Click. It was brain before brawn. Brain, brawn, brain, brawn. Click. Okay. Hold your horses. No snoring. This part may get very complicated. Alright. The construction of the Great Pyramid began before any stones were laid. The first step was to draw a circle onto the ground with a man standing in the center holding a rod called a sighting pole called a sighting rod. Very sorry. The man would look at the circumpolar star Vega, again that astrology thing coming along there, through the forked part of the sighting rod called the bay. And I pretty much show a diagram of all that. It's very complicated on the diagram. Try to explain it simpler. Alright, click. He would then, after looking at the star Vega, he would record where the star rose in the night sky and where it set. And after the process completed, it will be repeated for accuracy, because those points are extremely important, apparently. And then once the position of the circumpolar star was made certain, the distance between each point where the star rose and the star set would be measured and then bisected into two parts. In between those two parts was true north. Click. True north was used to form a square with precise right angles. The square was used as the foundation of the pyramid. If the foundation was not perfectly straight, the whole pyramid collapsed, which is pretty much why it's very important to make sure that they had the points exactly right, otherwise the whole pyramid will go kerplunk. And then pretty much I show a diagram of year 5 to year 21, like the base growing and like the steps growing and stuff. Because you know the core was a step pyramid, but they just like put more bricks in between to make it a smooth-sided pyramid, which we see today. Click. Now, here are some calculations that the Egyptians made based on finding true north. And as you can see, they are far too complicated for me to comprehend, and they're in Egyptian hieroglyphics. Please do not expect me to explain. Click. Once the foundation was laid out, a perfectly straight foundation, the construction of the pyramid could finally begin. It all began in a limestone quarry built on the Giza Plateau, half a mile south of the pyramid site. Men would use a copper or iron chisel and a hammer to cut out each block of stone. Due to the vast number of blocks, a symbol will be painted on each of the blocks for identification. And after the blocks of the symbol painted on them, they would be transported to the pyramid construction site. Click. There's a little comment to entertain those of you. Work is extremely hard and dangerous. And you can see the little Egyptian taskmaster dude, whatever you want to call him, going, I told you not to try and lift one on your own. Click. Okay. Each block is loaded onto a sledge pulled by a team of men. Go back, Marissa. To the slide before. Not very smart, dude. As you can see, it says team of men. Click. Go back. Forward. Okay, the men would pull the sledge up a wooden track on a ramp. And this is pretty much a diagram of men holding up sledges on a ramp from point A to B to C. And the thing about ramps is that they were pretty much rubble held together with gypsum and mortar. And what would happen is that they would grow as the pyramid grew, and then once the pyramid was completed, they'd have to tear down the ramps. So, alright. After the majority of the pyramid was completed, construction of the main burial chamber could finally begin. The roof of the burial chamber was to be made out of granite. And on the downside, the granite was located at Aswan Quarry, some 600 miles down the Nile River. That's considered very far. 9 barges transported the 9 blocks of granite, aka, as known as, the most important blocks of the entire pyramid. Click. And then I provide a little diagram of the Great Pyramid of Giza. And as you can see, unlike most pyramids, which house only one burial chamber, this pyramid uniquely houses 3. As you can see, at the very bottom one is a subterranean chamber. Then in the middle of the diagram, you can see the queen's chamber, and you see a little structure with a little fancy roof type thing. It's the king's chamber, aka, as known as, here we go again, the main burial chamber. And as you can see, right next to it is something called the Grand Gallery, which is pretty much something that you would have to climb up in order to access it. Click. And then I just provided a picture of the sarcophagus and the Grand Gallery, and as you can see, there's a person huffing and puffing to try and get up because it's extremely steep. It's a big, gigantic staircase type thing, majig. Click. Alright, now that we've done with construction, let's move on to the chronology. Now, here's the thing. The Egyptians, like Bill Morgan mentioned before, were in competition with other countries to see which was the oldest civilization. Doing so, an event was recorded. The priests placed it thousands of years before it actually occurred. That's good. This would create an inaccurate chronology that would not have matched the dates of other events occurring at the same time. So that means if there was an event occurring at the same time, it wouldn't match and it would throw everything off and cause chaos and all that bad stuff we don't need. So, because of this, there is a revised chronology that it happens to be compatible with the Bible. So, yay. Click. Alright. For those of you out there who are snoring, I'm pretty sure all of you will awake. This is pretty much a bit of a review. Mizraim was the son of Ham, one of the three sons, and Ham was one of the three sons of Noah. Genesis 10:6. Mizraim was there at the construction of the Tower of Babel. Genesis 11:1-9. Mizraim traveled to Egypt with his family. He did not start the building of the pyramids, and the first pyramid was built in the beginning of the 3rd dynasty by King Zoser, known as the Pyramid of Zoser, or better known as the Set Pyramid of Saqqara, which is named after the place where it was, the site is. Click. Okay, in the 4th dynasty, King Neferu made the first attempt at a smooth-sided pyramid called the Bent Pyramid. And as you can see, it's the lopsided one again. It is called the Bent Pyramid because the lower half of the pyramid slopes at a 43-degree angle, whereas the upper half slopes at a 54-degree angle. And archaeologists believe that the change in angle is because the pyramid was becoming too top-heavy, therefore creating cracks at the bottom of the pyramid. If they continued at the angle, the pyramid would go kerplunk. So, obviously, King Neferu had some pride left in him, decided he didn't want to be buried in such inferior conditions, and decided to construct another pyramid called the Red Pyramid, which, like I said earlier, is the first true pyramid or smooth-sided pyramid. Wait, did I say that earlier? Who cares? Okay, click. Alright. Pyramids of the Giza Plateau. Neferu's son, Khufu, or known by the Greeks as Cheops, built the Great Pyramid on the Giza Plateau. It is the last one of the 7 ancient wonders of the world remaining today, which means all of them are reduced to rubble. It stands 480 feet tall, was the tallest structure for centuries until the construction of the Eiffel Tower, and required 3 million blocks to build. The next kings of the dynasty, Khafre and Menkaure, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, built their pyramids also on the Giza Plateau. Khafre's pyramid almost matched the height of Khufu's pyramid, but had a steeper angle, which meant it required fewer stones. I don't know if that's genius or cheating. Click. Alright. Who wants to get rich today? Wait, $1,000 question. Who wants to get rich today? That's not the question. Okay. Okay, the real question is, how many blocks did it take to make the Great Pyramid? Click. And as most of you are correct, and they were mostly cut at the pyramid's location. Unfortunately, since I'm not really all that rich, I can't award $1,000 to each of you anyway. So, I'm very sorry for getting your hopes up. So sorry. Click. Alright. I know it says end, but it's really during. During the 12th dynasty, Joseph and his family may have come to Egypt. Moses may have been born at the end of this dynasty. Most of the pyramids in this dynasty were made of mud bricks and had smooth stones placed on top. The smooth stones were removed, therefore the pyramids were reduced to rubble. Hasta la vista. The Jewish historian Josephus believed that the Hebrew slaves were responsible for the construction of these pyramids, mostly because of the mud brick part. Most archaeologists disagree with this belief, but with the revised chronology, the Hebrew slaves belong in the 12th dynasty. Mwahaha. Click. There it is. The last of the Great Pyramids was built by Anhamet III at Hawara. This pharaoh could have very well been the foster father of Moses. His daughter, Sober-Neferu, was the last to rule the 12th dynasty and had no heirs. She may have been the one who came down to wash herself at the Nile River, Exodus 2:5. She most likely came down to the Nile River to pray to the Nile fertility god, Happy, for a baby. When baby Moses drifting in the basket caught her attention, she may have thought this an answer to her prayer. Moses was 40, he killed an Egyptian guard and fled to Midian. This would leave Sober-Neferu without an heir, thus discontinuing the dynasty. Moses returned to Egypt 40 years later during, I believe it's the 13th dynasty, or the PowerPoint says the 14th, because dynasty could not have passed in 40 years, because that would require a person dying really young and not having any heirs, and that would be really weird. Alright, click. Alright, why the stars, people? I know that's the title of my sequence and stuff, so I'll explain. Remember back when I explained to you about how the Egyptians used the stars to take measurements? Well, there happens to be a little bit more to it than that. Later pyramids had hieroglyphics that tell the story of the pharaoh's journey in the afterlife. In the end, they believed that they would all go forth the kings among the indestructibles. The indestructibles are the circumpolar stars that they used to find true north. And evidence of this is that in the Great Pyramid of Giza, there in the main burial chamber, there's a small little, I don't know what to call it, but it's like a shaft. And if you were to follow it up, it's angled at the circumpolar stars. Because the circumpolar stars never moved, they believe that they are eternal and the location of heaven. The pyramid was built as a means to get there, a resurrection machine. However, we know that there is only one way to get to heaven. Click. Everybody?
Jesus is the way.
Click. In conclusion, what is so amazing is the fact that the Egyptians built the pyramids out of pure genius. You or I would have to go to school and get a degree in engineering like Bill Morgan in order to know how to build a pyramid. But we still wouldn't be able to replicate it. This is why pyramids remain a mystery and an example of the intelligence of early men. And click. Ta-da. And that's that.
Well, wonderful. Thank you so much. Good, awesome talent. I mean, we want to see you some more. We're going to take a 5-minute break, and then we're going to have Bill come back, and then, okay, I'm drawing a blank. Bill's daughter, Rachel, will be speaking. I'm reminded that the latest newsletter that we have has a, can I have this just for a second? Has a genealogy like this. I was so inspired by Bill putting this together that I put one together and wanted to color code it, which you don't see the color in this. But what we're going to do is the version that's complete, this is all, as you can see, it's spread out on 3 pages. So this is a 1-page deal. It's a track. It's a long track and a short track. The long track is 2 sheets, and they're front and back, so it's 1 page. You pass it out, and it has every verse that it takes to add up to this 4004 BC, which is this year 6,014 years. That's how old we are. That's how long ago God made everything. And there's nothing before the beginning. Don't let the old earthers tell you that. Otherwise, guess what? Beginning doesn't mean beginning. So what we're going to try to do is get, the other one is a single sheet. It's 1 sheet, 1 forward-facing sheet, no back. And it's does not have the Bible verses written out like this one does. It just has the Bible address. You can look it up if you need to. It's a quicker one. So it's a quick reference guide. You give it to people, and they'll say, oh, we've been around for millions of years. Oh, no. You can just throw it at us. No, we've been here for about 6,000 years. Here's the genealogies that takes you all the way to the beginning of time. It's documented in the Bible. It stands up under scrutiny. Here, check it out yourself. If they want a little more, you can give them the ones that have the Bible verses all written out. And, or another way to do it is to hand them a single little card that you can just write down or whatever of a website that has it. I'm going to try to get this on as many websites as possible that will take it. It's been endorsed by Floyd Nolan Jones. He is the Bishop Usher of today. He wrote the book, Chronology of the Old Testament, where he takes and fine-tunes Bishop Usher's chronology and solves every problem that Usher had. Usher was off in only 1 or 2 years. I'm talking 6,014 years, and Usher was off by 1 or 2 years. That's pretty good. Now, he's solved all those issues. He's done it through multiple angles, through astronomy, through history, through archaeology, etc., etc., etc. And he does it multiple ways. He's just absolutely, establishes scientifically and historically that these are the correct things. He's endorsed it. He's put his name on it. It's color-coded. It's extremely simple. The math is accurate. I did it on a spreadsheet, so I wasn't involved in the math. My computer was. So with that being said, I think everybody's seated, and we'll have Bill come and give his second half.
Art,
Yes.
I have one suggestion. Instead of trying to work the color code in a more costly version, try underline them, italicize, bold, any of the spatial characters.
Okay.
There's a way to simulate each one of the colors.
Yeah, that's an idea. And especially because they don't Xerox as well. You wind up getting different shades of gray. Yeah, I know. And that was a problem. That's why we stuck with the fluorescent pastel colors that will Xerox and have only the lightest shade of gray. Not that that's helpful at that point, because I think when the colors are helpful, otherwise no color is helpful. Come on, Bill. Don't let me slow you down. All right, let's welcome Bill Morton.
And everybody's side, right? Okay. My part here is going to be real fast. We'll turn it over to my daughter, Rachel, who's 12, not a teenager. So I'm not the president, and she's not a teenager. Okay, what is this? PowerPoint. Okay. It's not actual hieroglyphics. Of all the, a lot of times you hear a creation lesson, if you can take 1 or 2 talking points with you, it's a good thing. When I witness to people, sometimes the points I make, the people who built the pyramids were smart. Their language was more complex than our language is today. God instantly created smart people. I don't think we went from knuckle draggers to smart to today. I think they were created very, very brilliant. But very hard language for people to decipher, but they were able to. Okay, I'm going to talk about some ancient cultures, and you decide if they were smart or not. Now the Mayans, smart or dummies? What do you think?
Smart.
Okay, what 2 modern-day countries did the Mayans live? It has nothing to do with creation evolution, but trivia is fun, right? Mexico and what? Very good. You guys are good. Mexico and Guatemala. The Mayans had a calendar. Real simple and primitive? Hardly. It was 3 calendars in one. It was a calendar that had the creation of the world, a 260-day cycle, and a 360-day calendar. And it starts when? 3000 BC, about 5,000 years ago. That's when the Mayan calendar started. There's a pattern here, isn't there? Okay? And they were brilliant astronomers. And their calendars were much more complex than the calendars that were developed in the past, in the West. Okay? You guys heard about the movie? It passed. I mean, I guess it came and went, right? Okay. Was it great? Okay. Yep. When I first gave this lesson over a year ago, people were thinking it was about the end of the world. Well, I always ask my kids, when my kids might say, why do people do this? Money is often the main thing, right? They promoted the movie, they promoted a book teaching that the Mayan calendar was going to predict the end of the world. It didn't. The Mayan calendar talked about the end of a cycle. I don't have to spend a lot of time on this, not the end of the world, but you don't get on front page of the newspaper and magazines and sell books by saying end of a cycle. And there's some quote about the fabrication that people were doing to the Mayan calendar about predicting the end of the world. Just some quick pictures on PowerPoint of what people built. Incredibly brilliant. Your ancestors were very, very intelligent. Okay? The world's largest pyramid by volume. No offense to Bailey. Was built by who?
Middle America somewhere.
Very good. Yep. The Aztecs. They built the largest pyramid by volume. Still exists today. Twice the volume of the Egyptian pyramids. That scale doesn't really do it justice, though. And now we'll talk about the Incas real quick as we speed up to get to Rachel. Very good. Peru. They were good with plants, as you can see, over 200 different varieties of potatoes. Very, very intelligent, advanced people. This is one of my favorite things. They built these temples without mortar. They cut those rocks to fit, and there's art. It's neat when science and art meet, isn't it? And it's completely with that. You could not get a thin sheet of paper and fit it into any of those joints, and there's no mortar in there. And they designed it so that they'd be interlocking as well. You know how people used to build ships in bottles? I joked to my friend, I said, with the internet now, who's going to be doing that kind of stuff, right? It's like people had, I don't know what to do this weekend. Oh, I'll put a ship in a bottle. I mean, craftsmanship like this is being lost because of the fun you can have on the internet, I guess. All right, who wants to pronounce this? I am certain in this group someone can pronounce this. How is that pronounced? You know, right? Yeah, it's pronounced sexy woman. How many people knew that? That's how it sounds in the English. My boss is from Peru, and he has confirmed this, and other people have as well. I checked with 3 sources that this is exactly how you pronounce it. Sexy woman. Okay, 1400 AD. Smart people. That is marvelous. One of the goals of tonight's lesson, you're going to be hearing about bird migration. It's just when you see things, just glorify God, okay? Yeah, people made this, but God gave them the ability to do it. Anything you've accomplished in life, it's because God gave you the gifts to do that. You have a small part in the covenant of what you have done, but God has equipped you with the gifts, and if you've applied it, that's a wonderful thing. But pride is the enemy of God. Glory should be given to him, and we need to be humble. Okay, more beautiful. I like the far side. Anthropologists, where they're trying to make a buck, of course. It says anthropologists, they're hiding their VCR, their lamps, their TVs. And Ben, he could draw. My favorite far side that I wanted to use for this, I couldn't find it, and I looked for over 2 hours. It's this woman's answering the door. She's got curlers. She's in a robe. And there's this primitive guy with flowers at the door, and it says, early man. He's early for his date. She's still getting ready. I couldn't find it. Stonehenge, you've heard about that? Controversy on what it was, but it sure appears to be, has to do with astronomy. Pardon me? Yeah, I just noticed that too. Typos. I always throw a typo in on purpose to see if you're reading that, right? Some stones weighed 25 tons, came from many, many miles away, even if it doesn't have to do with astronomy. Incredible construction. Easter Island is west of what country? Very good. I heard the answer. Chile. Once again, these people were very smart. And don't forget, what was their passion for building a lot of these? A&A. Astronomy and astrology. The point being, at the time of Babel, smart people split up And one of their highest priorities was astronomy and astrology, which completely coincides with the teachings of the Tower of Babel. Okay? 887 statues, a memorial to a deceased person. What an honor. That wouldn't be a bad tombstone, huh? Okay. This is right off a secular view on humans. You decide if it makes sense. For hundreds of thousands of years, humans lived in small communities seeking to survive by hunting, fishing, gathering food. To quote my dad, gotta eat. Then in the space of a few thousand years, there was an abrupt change of direction. The right mutations hit, right? Nonsense. People began to live in cities, form governments, and develop writing into art. It doesn't make any sense when you look at the details. I believe people were created smart. Some lived in caves, some lived in cities. And it occurred at about the same time in the river valleys of Western Asia, Egypt, India, and China. See what they're saying? All of a sudden, all these civilizations popped up all over the world. The Bible, once again, should be our light unto our path for truth. Here's a good one about man advancing. These guys will say, hey, look what Zog do. They're holding their meat in their hand. This guy has invented the tools. And he's got glasses. Look what Zog do. All right. Tough crowd, tough crowd. Conclusion for me, early humans showed incredible genius with architecture, engineering, metallurgy, etc., construction, language. And the biblical teachings are much better for early men. Once again, if you're witnessing to someone, you can bring up the pyramids, hieroglyphics, and how smart people used to be. And this, my wife actually did this today. And she's very, very intelligent. I said, push, honey. But anyways, that's the end for me. But now I'd like to introduce to you Rachel Morgan. A lot of you might be familiar that thanks to the Lord and thanks to this great country and doctor, she's a cancer survivor. When she was 2 years, she had leukemia. And through prayer and this fantastic country where people have worked hard on medicine, techniques, etc., she has succeeded in her battle against leukemia. She's been in remission 9 years. Ladies and gentlemen, Rachel Joy Morgan.
This is a bristle-thigh curlew. And any guesses on how far it can fly nonstop?
88 miles.
Any more?
Any more guesses?
Alright, guess. It can fly 5,000 miles nonstop across the Pacific Ocean. They would drown if they landed in the water. They start in Alaska, and then they end in Fiji, Tonga, and French Polynesia. And they start up in Alaska, and then they end in three. The parents give birth in Alaska, and then leave the chicks before the chicks can fly. And then when the chicks learn to fly, they join their parents 5,000 miles away. Alright, this is a short-tailed shearwater. They fly more than 8,000 miles, not non-stop. They start in eastern Australia, then they end in Alaska. After the chick has hatched, the parents will leave the chick and sometimes fly 9,000 miles looking for food and return to the chick. Alright, this is a bar-tailed godwit. No one flies longer than me. Alright, they start in Alaska, then they end in Australia. Alright, guess how many days in a row they can fly without stopping? 4?
30.
Alright. One of them was tracked and flew 7,000 miles over 9 days nonstop. Alright. Before migrating, they eat until 55% of their body weight is fat for flight. Alright. How does their body account for all that extra fat? Goes to their hips. Any guesses? Store it somewhere.
Where does the fat go?
Their butt.
Where does all that extra fat go?
To their head. To the wings. The wings. Their feet. Their intestines, kidney, and liver shrivel up to make room for the fat, but its muscles don't shrivel. Because if their muscles shrivel, they could be able to fly. Okay, they start in Alaska and they end in New Zealand. Alright, this is another migration route of the bar-tailed godwit. Alright, this is an Arctic tern. Alright, they fly over 24,000 miles in a single year. Talk about frequent flyer miles. Alright, they nest far north, annually travel south to the Arctic. I love living way north and way south during the summers. Thus I see more what than any other animal on Earth. Ding, ding, ding. They see more daylight per year than any other animal. Alright, the breeding grounds are in red. Then when winter approaches, it flies to the blue and the migration route is in green. To fly over water in World War II, bomber pilots needed what? Wings.
For navigating.
Fuel.
Navigate.
Compass. Computer.
Sextant.
Navigation. GPS.
A window. Alright. They need an airspeed indicator, a sextant, a gyro compass, a magnetic compass, a ruler, a protractor, a clock, a tachometer, and a map. What does a gyro compass do?
Points north.
Wait, what? What's the difference between north and true north?
There's magnetic north and true north. Your compass is not true north with the magnet. Because the attraction isn't quite to the north. So it's close enough with your voice.
Out here is off by 7 degrees.
What does a tachometer measure? Alright, I don't need no sextant. What is a gyro compass? Only amateurs need a protractor. I don't need no stinking map. Evolutionists are baffled by our ability to migrate. Oh, really? Evolutionists admit that we are genetically programmed to migrate. Oh, cool. A programmer requires a programmer. Oh, really? Who is a programmer? Audience, who is it? Ding, ding, ding. Alright, why migrate? Dwindling food supply. Bug eaters migrate more often than seed eaters. But they migrate when they are fat, not hungry. They need the fat to have more energy, to have the energy to make the long flight. Temperature and barometric pressure also trigger them to migrate. Job 12:7-9. But ask the animals and they will teach you, or the birds of the air will tell you that the hand of the Lord has done this. Bird migration. How do they know where to go? Scientists say that birds have a built-in sense of directions. Some crows were born in Canada, taken from their parents and caged. After their parents flew south to Oklahoma, the young crows were released, flew 2,000 miles, and found their parents. Bird migration. Blech. Birds also use the sun, the moon, and stars, landmarks, and the Earth's magnetic field. They wait for a good tailwind. They usually fly high so they won't overheat. flying information saves 20% of their energy. In 1995, an estimated 80 million ducks migrate at once over the Kansas City, and they close the airport.
Now, why couldn't they just fly on the ducks?
Most penguins migrate, and some swim 600 miles to migrate. God challenges Job. Dun dun dun. Job 39:26. Doth the hawk fly by your wisdom and stretch her wings toward the south? Jeremiah 8:7 wrote, the stork in the heavens knows her appointed time, and the turtle dove and the crane and the swallow observe the time of their coming.
Don't marvel at us. Marvel at God.
Alright, God is an artist. This is the violet-tailed sylph, the blue fairy wren, the Guldanian finch.
I'm sorry, I don't know.
And the talking points from her, it's so easy. If you talk about, like to a stranger about bird migration, many times the skeptic will say, how does the bird know how to do that? Just in the past week I was talking to someone. And how does the bird know how to migrate 5,000 miles, find its parents? It's got to be programmed from God, right? Flying at night, you can't rely on the sun anymore. It's just too complex for that. And when you go to Petco and you see these beautiful birds, hopefully you look at them with God-colored glasses and just marvel at the Creator. Every animal out there. My favorite thing in nature is watching birds land and take off and their tail feathers going like this. I always try to look for that, but just enjoy God's creation and give Him the glory and keep all our pride at the curb. Amen? Okay, well, round of applause for the ladies again. And anyone in this audience, if you have a creation message, I'll volunteer you for the South Bay group. Speak about it, right? It's a good ministry for you and for everyone else. And I'll turn it over to Brother Garth.